Hollywood has no shortage of tales about child stars who were forced to mature far too quickly, but Tuesday Weld's story stands out as perhaps the most extreme. Weld's appetite for controversy often left audiences uneasy, yet she somehow carved out her own path to stardom. Before that success, however, her life was nothing short of chaotic. Let's delve deeper into her journey and uncover how Tuesday Weld defied the odds to become one of Hollywood's most unexpected survivors. At an alarmingly young age, Tuesday Weld was already notorious for her provocative film roles and tumultuous romantic entanglements. But the true antagonist in her life wasn't the industry, it was her own mother. Weld's resentment toward her grew so intense that it eventually erupted in a shocking and irreversible way. We'll return to that pivotal moment shortly. Born Susan Keir Weld on Friday, August 27, 1943, contrary to what her stage name might suggest, her upbringing was anything but stable. Her family lived on the edge, constantly at risk of collapse. Before she even turned 4, Susan faced her first major upheaval when her already fragile family shrank even further. Her father, Lathrop Emily Weld, was the outcast of the family, burdened by a troubled past marked by addiction and scandalous relationships. His sudden death left them in dire financial straits. With 3 children to care for and no income, Weld's mother, Josine Balforker, was overwhelmed. In a moment of desperation, Josine noticed something about her daughter. Susan was strikingly beautiful, and that sparked an idea. Determined to salvage their situation, Josine decided to push young Susan into modeling. Before long, Weld's childhood was consumed by endless auditions and the crushing responsibility of providing not just financially, but emotionally for her family. Shockingly, her mother expected her to single-handedly solve all their problems, a burden no child should bear. All of this unfolded before Weld even reached the age of 10, and the toll was devastating. By 9 years old, the strain of acting as both breadwinner and emotional anchor for her family became unbearable, leading to a complete nervous breakdown. Seizing the opportunity, Elsine relocated the family to Fort Lauderdale, hoping Weld could finally experience a more structured education away from the relentless audition circuit of New York City. Tragically, by this point, any chance of a normal childhood for Susan Weld had already slipped away. Burdened with adult-sized struggles, she sought an equally adult escape: alcohol. Shockingly, by the age of 10, she was grappling with a full-blown addiction. Yet the weight of supporting her family never lifted, forcing her back into work. This time, her mother left the other children with a friend in Fort Lauderdale and dragged Weld back to New York City. The money had to be made, no matter the cost. Modeling soon opened another door: acting. At just 12 years old, Weld landed her first minor role in a television series. That same year, in 1956, Hollywood took notice, and none other than the legendary Alfred Hitchcock offered her a small part as a laughing teenager in The Wrong Man. But stepping onto a film set was no dream come true. For Weld, it felt more like a waking nightmare. Despite her brief TV and film appearances, Weld's emotional turmoil only deepened. Perhaps acting wasn't her calling, or maybe no child should ever bear the responsibility of being a family's primary provider. The unbearable stress drove her further into self-destruction, mixing pills with her already crippling alcohol dependency. Instead of seeking help for her daughter, Weld's mother relentlessly forced her into the spotlight, ignoring her distress. Weld's first leading role came in Rock, 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 a jukebox musical built around popular hits of the era. Though she was the nominal star, the film's real appeal lay in its roster of established musicians. Yet Weld still managed to steal attention, for all the wrong reasons. While other young actors played wholesome teens, critics singled her out for something darker. Her performances carried an unsettling edge, prompting Time magazine to label her the archetypal nymphette. It was as if her own fractured upbringing bled into her roles, and heartbreakingly, this was what finally made her stand out. Hollywood has long been notorious for casting adults as teenagers, but in Weld's case, the opposite proved true. Despite being only 12 years old during the filming of Rock, 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 she appeared significantly older, a fact that became unsettling when paired with her 21-year-old on-screen love interest. This uncomfortable dynamic foreshadowed Weld's real-life romantic choices, which would later mirror the questionable roles forced upon her. The next significant chapter in Weld's career came with 1958's Rally Round the Flag Boys, which brought her and her mother to Hollywood. In this comedy, Weld portrayed the strangely named teenage nymphette Comfort Goodpasture. While the film's true significance lay in her co-stars, particularly the powerhouse duo of Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, it was her chemistry with Dwayne Hickman that caught 20th Century Fox's attention. This pairing proved so promising that the studio reunited them in 1959 for the CBS television series, The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. Now professionally known as Tuesday Weld, she played one of the unattainable love interests for Hickman's character. However, behind the scenes, the young stars shared anything but romantic feelings. Hickman criticized Weld's lack of preparation and perceived unserious approach to acting, while Weld found her co-star pretentious and disconnected from reality. These tensions weren't the only issues plaguing the production. As a family-friendly show, The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis clashed dramatically with Weld's off-screen persona and acting choices. One particularly controversial scene featured Weld flirting with Warren Beatty's character during what should have been an innocent conversation about closet contents. The actors took the moment in an unexpectedly suggestive direction that alarmed the show's sponsors, ultimately leading to Weld's dismissal after just one season. This professional setback, however, marked the beginning of a more daring phase in Weld's career. Allied artists not only recruited her from 20th Century Fox, but also facilitated a dramatic shift in her image. Having spent years playing love-struck teenagers, Weld now took on a radically different role in Sex Kittens Go to College, signaling both a career transformation and the final loss of her youthful innocence. The 1960 film that gained infamy primarily for featuring Brigitte Bardot's sister stands as one of cinema's most notorious disasters. Yet its true scandal ran deeper than its questionable casting. The production company's marketing strategy pushed boundaries in ways that shocked even jaded audiences. In a bold move to maximize profits, Allied artists filmed additional risque scenes featuring dancers and a robotic character, then strategically released this enhanced version in adult-oriented theaters. This decision proved particularly controversial given Weld's tender age of 17, effectively making her the star of what became an X-rated production. But this was merely the opening act in her series of provocative roles. Her subsequent film, The Private Lives of Adam and Eve, filmed when Weld was just 16 though released a year later, escalated the controversy. The plot followed bus passengers collectively dreaming themselves into the Garden of Eden, with voluptuous Mamie Van Doren predictably earning top billing. What distinguished this production wasn't just its salacious content, but its sacrilegious treatment of biblical material, a combination that ignited fierce backlash. The Catholic Legion of Decency condemned it as blasphemous, while British censors refused it theatrical certification altogether. Through these choices, Tuesday Weld cemented her reputation as Hollywood's rebellious bad girl, unafraid to challenge moral boundaries. Weld's off-screen behavior amplified her scandalous image. Her well-publicized romantic entanglements with significantly older celebrities, including Frank Sinatra, Raymond Burr, and George Hamilton, raised eyebrows throughout the industry. Most shocking was her relationship with 45-year-old actor John Ireland when she was merely 16. Weld flaunted these unconventional relationships with defiant pride, complementing them with deliberately provocative behavior like attending interviews barefoot. Radical acts for a teenager in the conservative early 1960s. 1961 marked a turning point with Return to Peyton Place, representing Weld's first major dramatic role. Though still exploring taboo subjects, her character endured an abusive stepfather. The film demonstrated her untapped acting potential. Critics noted her raw, almost primal screen presence that transcended typical ingenue roles. That same year's Wild in the Country paired Weld with Elvis Presley, a collaboration that lived up to its title both on and off camera. The production became legendary for its behind-the-scenes chaos, mirroring the rebellious energy of its young stars. The king of rock and roll found himself at the center of an on-set romantic triangle during filming, with both Hope Lang and Tuesday Weld vying for Elvis Presley's attention. Weld ultimately emerged victorious in this subtle competition, largely because Lang's marital status made her an unavailable option. Just as Weld prepared to pursue the romance, her carefully cultivated bad girl persona became an unexpected obstacle. Colonel Tom Parker, Presley's notoriously controlling manager, strictly governed every aspect of his star's career and personal life. When news reached Parker about his prized performer's interest in Hollywood's most notorious young rebel, he intervened without hesitation. Weld's filmography, filled with provocative titles, and her well-documented history with older men had branded her as unacceptable company, even for the hip-swiveling rock star who constantly pushed boundaries himself. Ironically, Weld's controversial reputation soon attracted attention from one of cinema's most visionary directors. In 1962, Stanley Kubrick began adapting Vladimir Nabokov's controversial novel, Lolita, for the screen, a story centering on the disturbing relationship between a middle-aged man and a teenage girl. Kubrick immediately saw Weld as the perfect candidate for the titular role, a telling indication of how the industry perceived her public image. Weld's response to the offer revealed much about her personal experiences. She famously declined by stating, "I didn't have to play it, I was Lolita." While this rejection might have seemed flippant, it spoke volumes about the life she'd actually lived. Though passing on Lolita appeared to demonstrate Weld's nonchalant attitude toward her career, this decision may have been a significant misstep. The film became a critical darling, earning widespread acclaim and numerous award nominations. Sue Lyon, the actress who ultimately portrayed Lolita, won a Golden Globe for her performance, an honor that might have been Weld's. Instead, the rebellious star continued to wander through Hollywood without finding projects that could properly showcase her talents or elevate her status in the industry. In a move that demonstrated unexpected pragmatism, Weld decided to step away from the spotlight. Frustrated by the limited roles being offered to her, she opted for an acting hiatus, though her chosen retreat was anything but tranquil. Rather than seeking solitude, she immersed herself in the vibrant counterculture of Manhattan's Greenwich Village. What might have seemed like a whimsical decision ultimately proved transformative, as Weld returned from her urban sabbatical, a markedly different woman. This period of reinvention bore professional fruit almost immediately. By 1965, she found herself sharing the screen with Steve McQueen in the critically acclaimed The Cincinnati Kid. Soon after, she delivered a powerful performance opposite George C. Scott in a television adaptation of The Crucible, earning substantial critical praise. The Village experience had apparently helped her break free from being typecast as the seductive teenager that had defined her early career. Her personal life underwent a parallel transformation during this period. Demonstrating new maturity, Weld entered into marriage with screenwriter Claude Hars in 1965, and the couple welcomed a daughter named Natasha. Just as her career was gaining serious momentum, her domestic life appeared to stabilize, at least temporarily. Unfortunately, the marital bliss proved short-lived, ending in divorce by 1971. Weld placed the blame squarely on her mother Yosine's interference, claiming she had disapproved of all her romantic partners, including her husband. Professional challenges soon followed personal ones. Weld's 1968 film, Pretty Poison, now regarded as a cult classic, became a battleground between actress and director. Known for her professionalism on set despite her wild off-screen reputation, Weld found herself in constant conflict with novice director Noel Black. His inexperience showed in vague, unhelpful direction, at one point famously instructing Weld to simply think about Coca-Cola during a pivotal scene. The friction grew so intense that Weld eventually demanded Black communicate through her co-star Anthony Perkins as an intermediary. She would later call it her worst screen performance. Ironically, Pretty Poison received strong reviews and eventually developed a devoted following, though its initial box office performance suffered from tragically poor timing. The dark comedy about violent youth debuted just as the nation was reeling from two real-life atrocities that made its themes uncomfortably resonant. The turbulent year of 1968 made America particularly unreceptive to dark satire. With the nation mourning the assassinations of both Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy, audiences had little appetite for the kind of provocative humor that Pretty Poison offered. Weld herself demonstrated this new discernment when she flatly rejected Roman Polanski's 1971 offer for a nude sleepwalking scene in his Macbeth adaptation. Her blunt refusal proved prescient when 6 years later, Polanski fled the country after pleading guilty to unlawful sexual intercourse with a minor. Weld's career reached new heights in 1972 with Play It As It Lays, reuniting her with Anthony Perkins. Critics hailed this as her finest performance, largely because the role mirrored her own experiences, playing a disillusioned former model and B-movie actress trapped in a failing marriage. The Golden Globes recognized her powerful portrayal with a Best Actress nomination. Her 1977 collaboration with Diane Keaton in Looking for Mr. Goodbar proved even more successful. Though Keaton had just won major awards for Annie Hall, it was Weld who earned an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. The film also sparked a romance with rising star Richard Gere. Ironically, both actresses would later become romantically involved with Al Pacino during this period. Weld's personal life continued its dramatic trajectory through 2 more marriages. In 1975, she wed comedian Dudley Moore, with whom she had a son before divorcing in 1980. 5 years later, she married renowned violinist Pinchas Zukerman in a union that began under ominous circumstances. The couple purchased the Montauk home of Broadway producer Norman Keane, who had murdered his wife before committing suicide by jumping from their apartment roof. After 13 turbulent years of marriage, Weld cited musical differences as the reason for their 1998 divorce, quipping that she couldn't bear to hear another note from her husband. The allegedly haunted house proved equally difficult to part with when they eventually sold the property. 2 decades after the tragic events, the infamous property remained a difficult sell due to its dark history. In 2009, Weld ultimately sold the house at a significant loss, nearly $2 million below the asking price, finally resolving her real estate dilemma. However, just as this chapter closed, another troubling aspect of her life resurfaced: the deeply fractured relationship with her mother. Their toxic dynamic reached such extremes that Weld began telling people her mother had already passed away, a cruel deception that eventually backfired. Yosine secured the last word by publishing a tell-all memoir titled If It's Tuesday, I Must Be Dead, which many critics compared to Christina Crawford's infamous Mommy Dearest for its scathing portrayal of a mother-daughter relationship. The book placed all blame squarely on Weld's shoulders, though Yosine never lived to see its 2003 publication, having died in 2001. Yosine's death left Weld with complex, conflicting emotions. While she claimed to finally feel liberated from her mother's domineering influence, she simultaneously insisted the loss affected her very little. More unsettling were Weld's continued assertions that she sensed her mother's persistent presence, even speculating about possible reincarnation. This psychological turmoil coincided with Weld's 2001 departure from Hollywood, when she relocated to Colorado seeking tranquility and what she described as a profound hunger for silence. Yet even in self-imposed exile, rumors about Weld's mental health and alleged occult interests continued to circulate. After 17 years away, Weld surprised many by returning to Hollywood, sparking speculation about a potential comeback. Whether or not she appears in another film, her cultural impact remains undeniable. References to Weld appear across popular culture, from classic cartoons, The Flintstones, to modern horror, American Horror Story, and sitcoms, 2.5 Men. Her iconic image graced the cover of Matthew Sweet's 1991 album Girlfriend, while 2 bands, Britain's The Real Tuesday Weld and Germany's Tuesday Weld, adopted her name as their own. Weld herself embraces this enduring cult status, describing it as a very nice thing.